What comes to mind when we think record label? A big advance, recording services, a marketing campaign, music videos, concert tour. Surprisingly or not surprisingly, there are thousands of tiny labels that do none of these things, and they're still totally awesome.
In the music business, bigger is not necessarily better. In fact, I believe smaller is actually better.
Hey, I'm the Bun. I'm figuring out how to build a career in heavy niche music as a solo artist over 50. Some things will work, some things will fail, but I'm sharing everything. Not a record deal.
It's very common for artists to think in a very polarized way, to think either you're killing it on a big label and making a ton of loot, or you're totally independent and totally broke. Maybe there's an in-between. Hanging out here with Theo.
What's up?
Show up your guts!
For the last 10 years, I've had this project with my pal Theo. It's called Vens, and it's this sludgy, grindy thing, and it sounds like this. It was back on the 4th of April, 2022, and we got an email from this rad label called Zegma Beach Records. It went something like,
I like this Vens project, and I was wondering if you had any desire to put it out on a 7-inch.
Zegma Beach Records, or ZBR, we'll call it from here on out. They put out a whole bunch of rad stuff like Orphan Donor, Yashura, Off Minor, Lower Automation, lots of rad bands. ZBR is a DIY micro label, and they put out rad stuff. And of course, we said, yes, please put out our 7-inch. Indie tastes better. I've always been stoked on the indie artists and indie labels. Those kinds of labels and artists make the kind of music that I want to listen to. It kind of makes sense that more DIY-oriented things are generally more aesthetic, more creative, more artistic, because it's less people. The bigger the production is, the more people involved, the further away from a singular artistic vision you get. When I first started with music, doing bands, tours, releases, all that kind of stuff, getting signed was what most artists prayed for. I was never really interested in any of that. I was always in love with the whole DIY thing because it got you closer to all of the relationships. All of the people that you work with, you're working with them more closely. The audience, you're more close to them. Everything is closer. But it was really hard going in the early days because things weren't accessible like they are now. The big time, not the best time. Traditionally, with larger labels, there are a pile of problems with signing a record deal. They're often very complicated and require legal counsel and negotiations. It's very common for artists to be misrepresented and locked into deals that heavily favor the label. Back then, we had to manufacture physical media, and it was really expensive. There was no streaming at all, and downloads were just beginning. The closest thing to social media was forums, and that wasn't until the mid-90s. So back then, a large label was very desirable for manufacturing, distribution, and getting out to a wider audience. And this is what led to the problem of the labels at the time were the gatekeepers of music careers, and that was a bummer. The anti-record deal. Microlabels, what are they? They're usually labels that fund the pressing or manufacturing of your CDs, your records, your tapes, whatever media, and they give the artist a bunch to sell on their own. They also give you the option to kind of buy more at cost if you need them. The whole thing works on a handshake deal, and it's based on this win-win kind of framework. The artist has some music and a bit of an audience. The label has the manufacturing and a little bit of an audience. They put it all together and they try to build something bigger than themselves.
I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, where is the money? And maybe it's not about the money. Maybe it's about the relationships, the connections. Maybe it's about building something bigger than yourself.
What about microlabels? What are microlabels and what are they all about? Microlabels are often concentrated on a niche such as like scrams, grime, sludge, etc. Pick a subgenre, like a very niche genre, and there's probably microlabels aplenty in that genre. Microlabels are probably the most popular in things like scrams, grind, sludge, post-hardcore, punk, all that. You'll find it a little bit in hip-hop as well. The folks who run microlabels usually do it more as a lifestyle than a business. Very often the people involved in microlabels have a very deep and long involvement in a creative community, either directly related to music or some peripheral thing, like they're graphic designers or photographers or something like that. One of the cool things about these DIY style labels is that communities often form around them. People who start and run these kinds of labels usually come from bands or other adjacent activities. So graphic design, illustration, production, photography, videography, etc. Microlabels commonly focus on a single medium, so vinyl only, CD only, tape only, or even digital only. How it usually works. In a typical microlabel agreement, there are often no contracts, and it's kind of like a handshake deal. Very, very simple terms. A common microlabel deal goes something like this. The label presses 300 to 500 records and gives some of those to the artist. Otherwise, they release that to their community and promote it. The label will keep all of the earnings on those sales to recoup on the manufacturing, as well as hopefully make a few dollars. The artist usually gets 50 to 100 records for free to sell for however much they like, and they get to keep all of the earnings of that. Beyond that, the artist can purchase more copies at cost from the label if the label has not yet sold out. In this sort of arrangement, the label works to promote the artist and the release, and the artist works to promote the label and the release. The label builds their catalog and credibility, hopefully making a few dollars and gaining a few fans. The artist builds their catalog and credibility, hopefully making a few dollars and gaining a few fans. So you get this win-win type of situation. The Vans 7-inch. So ZBR will be releasing the Vans Team Sports EP on 2 flavors of 7-inch vinyl. It's gonna be a ghost yellow gray two-tone and a clear and raunchy kind of pea yellow. You can pick those records up and you can explore more of what ZBR is all about from these locations. Would you start your own?
I'd love to know if you're aware of this whole microlabel world, if you've ever been involved with one, if you are very interested in it, if you are gonna start your own. Let me know in the comments down below. For all Bun things, including music, merch, and assets, you can find the links to all of that stuff down below. Otherwise, that's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you in the next one.